Good morning. If you are in a relationship that everybody is telling you to leave, and you know that intellectually you should leave, but you can't find your way to the door, this is for you today. So a lot of people in my field, particularly in my niche, teach abstinence as the saving grace to overcoming the toxic effects that are induced from being in a codependent relationship. So abstinence, although will be the natural outcome, likely, of somebody who has adopted their sovereignty back, I've had to say to grown women who are being physically abused, here are all the risks, and ask them honest questions like, are you willing to die in this relationship under these circumstances? And the truth is, some of them said yes. And that is the person I have to meet, right? I have to meet the person who goes, yes, I'm willing to die in this relationship. Okay, tell me about her. Tell me about that person who makes a sovereign choice, right? Because there's a boldness behind that choice to stay in a relationship that is harming you, okay? So we have to meet people where they are. We have to work with people where they are, and it's frustrating being the friend who has to hear about it for 3 years when you know, wow, this is just toxic, dude, and if you just walked away, your life would be better. But the thing is that we can teach abstinence all we want, right? But most people who need it aren't going to be able to refrain right away because they're met with intermittent reinforcement by the relationship itself, which in and of itself creates addiction. But we have to be aware that, in my field, true healing is not separation, right? It is wholeness. So addiction, by and large, which is what this is actually the effect. It's not the cause of the problem. So addicted people are using addiction because it's a symptom of a disease, right? And they're trying to externally meet their voids, their energetic voids, by a substance that's going to make them feel in a different state of consciousness than they currently feel. The addict cannot feel what they felt like before they were using, which is their natural state of being, and access that person to do work on that person, because that person has a void, the same void as the addict, but now the void is full of drugs, so they have a million things to push out of the void before they can even get to the void. So abstinence is key in the sense that we need to be able to feel ourselves outside of the relationship. But if you're not ready to get to that place, I want to give a disclaimer. This was not with a partner, but I do believe from personal experience that true healing is actually wholeness coming together, and that we don't always have to be estranged from the people that we have been previously in these relationship patterns with, because we are not, by and large, working with people. Although there are people who are fixated in their perception and in their ways of being, we are working with the way of being, the energetic pattern behind that, the relationship pattern behind that, right? So I don't always think that we have to be estranged from the people that we've previously had these relationships with. I actually think that the true nature of healing would be to come together in wholeness as a healed unit, right? So as much as it makes sense to promote abstinence, it doesn't always work, and it doesn't always, I don't think that leads to true healing. When we evolve in consciousness, we're not going to be saying, you have to necessarily leave this person. You have to stay with yourself, because that's the thing. To be in these relationships, we have to leave ourselves, right? And I'm going to give you a couple small examples of ways to keep steps that you can take your power back, so to speak, and actually stay in yourself instead of leaving yourself for the sake of somebody else. So if we can get in the body, if we can be who we were before we met that person, we can feel ourselves think, right? So every cell in the human body has receptor sites that are basically like pores on the skin. And each of those sites has a very specific keyhole lock, so to speak, that is a specific shape and pattern that a peptide who's just like floating through the bloodstream can come into, and it changes the effect that the cell is having on the world and on the organism itself. So the peptide comes in, it gives the cell information, and the cell vibrates differently, okay? So consider narcissistic patterns the peptide, right? Because they're just coming in. They're looking for something to just come into. And The codependent patterns are the cell, where we're like, I'm buzzing because now you're inside of me and now it's you, it's not me anymore, right? And that right there is addiction. That's where addiction begins. On a simple biological level, it's that simple. And if you extend that out more, it's like, oh, the energetic patterns of addiction are also there, because the codependent could by and large be a cell, and the narcissistic person could be the peptides. And what we know is that people become addicted to their states of being. Mice who are running through a maze and they're offered peptides, they're offered cheese, they're offered water, will go to the lever that has the peptides to the point of actually choosing the peptides over food and water and depleting themselves entirely to the point of exhaustion and death. That's what we do, okay? So when we can see these patterns for what they are, when we go, okay, so this actually has an effect on my way of being. And my only problem is not this person. It's the fact that I have a receptor site for that specific pattern. And that if I don't address that receptor site and fill it with something I want first, I want to fill that site with something that is me instead of something that is outside of me. When we go to that place of filling our receptor sites, then we're not going to attract the next relationship pattern that's exactly the same as this one, right? So the work is about inner work, inner to outer work. And if you're not ready to leave the relationship, I just want you to be aware. I want you to do enough work to be aware that the relationship is what it is. A lot of people get caught up in this, oh, this is a whimsical love affair. Like, it feels so true, way too true to be. I can't imagine that my life has been just another narcissistic codependent story. This feels way more than that. Well, here, honey, it's probably the same damn story every other codependent told that about their narcissistic person, just with different expressions, okay? The keyhole and the key are the same. And when we're working with those patterns, we have to see them for what they are. And we have to see our partner's relationship patterns as typical of that kind of archetype of person. So they will inevitably idolize us, and then if we can get back to that space even within the relationship where we pull back our own fuel, where we go, okay, I'm actually me and here again, instead of like letting you suck all of the life out of me by devaluing me and discarding me, I'm me, they're going to turn their eyes back to us after disregarding us for so long, because they're going to go, wow, you have something I want again. And it's you, because you have fuel that I don't believe I have in myself, right? So if we can go back to that way of being that we were before we even met them, we have enough strength to be the person who wants to leave them in the first place. But oftentimes being in it, and this is why I do understand why people promote abstinence from this person, the only reason that we're actually in it is because, I forget what the hell I was going to say. Anyway, so we have to see the patterns for what they are, acknowledge that that's what they are. We're just a part of somebody else's story, again. And it's like every other freaking story out there. And when you understand how the pattern works, you'll just anticipate the pattern. Then you go, oh, I can play that game. Okay, got this. That's actually, I'm not going to doubt myself for your insanity, because that's just a part of your disease, right? That's just your disease, and you can almost separate yourself from it. But then you have to go, oh, who is the sovereign being inside of me that wanted this? Who is the sovereign being inside of me that stays every day, puts my feet on the ground and goes, yeah, I accept this. I accept your intermittent reinforcement. I accept that you don't actually show up, but you say you're going to. I accept living in my head about potential realities. Who is that? Because there is a boldness to her that needs to work to him, that needs to be played with a little bit. Because when you start to really go, okay, well, I am a little bit in control of this, you start to feel that sense of, okay, this is me. I'm back in my body. I have power over the situation. I'm no longer powerless. And the natural result of that is going to be somebody who's full enough to have boundaries. We're going to go, no, you ain't getting in. And this is my life and my world. And actually, although I know how to play your game, I'm jumping the system. Like, this shit sucks. But you have to be the person who's willing to take the baby steps to get there, because I know that a lot of people will just say, okay, leave. And you're like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? They're telling me to leave, but I can't leave. And again, you're using somebody else to tell you what to do. You're using somebody else externally to validate your existence and your identity. And I'm just here to say, wherever you are, Take the baby steps to becoming the person from the inside out who knows herself, who sees the patterns for what they are, because it's not as deep as everybody makes it be, and who then can honor and trust that fullness of like, okay, I'm taking myself back a little bit. I know why I'm here, and I know the girl inside of me that chooses to stay, and I know the man inside of me that feels victimized and powerless, and why it's comfortable for me to be him. I want to talk to him. I want to talk to all of these parts of myself, right? So the natural result of that will be boundaries. And as I said, I don't necessarily believe that two people have to separate. I believe in the interim, separation will be a natural result, because the person who gets healthy enough is going to definitely piss the other person off enough to stop. The game's going to stop for a while. But eventually, ideally, they both do enough work to come back together into complete wholeness. But as I said, if you're just somebody who's like, oh, they're all telling me to leave and I don't really know how to do that or if I even want to, okay, that's cool. You don't have to leave. But talk to the person who really wants to stay and see what she's after, see what he's after, see what benefits there are to this. Because if you're just sitting around to live in potential and fix something because it didn't go the way that it was promised to you, you're somebody who will accept failure in your relationships. And I know that you're here because you want connection. You want something that's actually real. And the sad thing is like, yeah, sure, the relationship between the narcissist and codependent is so real. It's so real, okay? But it's also really poisonous. And we are sovereign beings who have the potential to go, okay, I'm going to close that receptor site up with me. Not with you, with me. And that takes work from the inside out. So I hope this was helpful. Bye, guys.